So this is 1905 edition. It's being started at a minute before 1905. It's 1904. So this is 1905. That is British Standard Time is 2005 on Saturday, the 1st of October, 2022. This is part 2 of the day's KhoodeelaarTV television channel broadcast. And our main theme continues to be BabyAngelGeronimo. BabyAngelGeronimo is the world's most innocent, the world's most healthy witness to the depraved behavior of DEPRA, the United Kingdom state agency, DEPRA. And the depravity of DEPRA was aggravated by the depravity of Boris Johnson, who was the fronter of the cabal called the UK government, of which DEPRA is, of course, a departmental part. And the woman that is the main evil-doing perpetrator at the DEPRA is the so-called chief vet, the chief veterinarian, whatever, and she is of Scottish background, but she is the UK DEPRA's chief vet, which means that in terms of career, in terms of the official kind of leeway she has, the authority she has, she can do serious damage to innocent beings, innocent animals. And that is where she comes in, because she is the one that persistently took part for several years in the intentional misinformation, defaming the BabyAngelGeronimo, demonizing the BabyAngelGeronimo, making false claims about the health, the state of the health of the BabyAngelGeronimo. And we shall continue to provide all our subsidiary commentary about other wrongdoings and misuse and abuse of power by decision makers stationed, employed, located at various stages, at various agencies of the state, as well as the so-called non-governmental organizations that are kind of subject to the approval of the government agencies. What the papers today, that is Saturday, 1st of October 2022, the so-called Fleet Street newspapers have echoed is the multiple abuse of the huge sums of money available to the government to promote the agenda that is nothing to do with the well-being and welfare and the fairness of access to resources of the ordinary people in this country, in the United Kingdom, so-called. United Kingdom, we use as a so-called United Kingdom because of the perilous state into which the UK Union has been put by successive, that is chronological, successive conservative governments, starting on this side of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, by Cameron, the liar David Cameron, the liar Theresa May, the multiple liar and criminal, Boris Johnson. Now, if anyone was watching this antics and the stupidities and idiocies and incompetence and cruelty and depravity and corruption of Boris Johnson, if anyone was watching him and thinking, oh my God, I mean, this is unprecedented badness and unprecedented low level of performance and conduct by the conservative so-called prime minister. If anyone thought that, well, Liez, whose name we have had to edit, Liez Truss, has put paid to the credibility of any such assessment, because she is not only bad, she is really bad. She is really bad and she is crazy, she is stupid and she is idiotic, to the power, multiplied to the power of whatever, any number. Unprecedented actions have been taken by otherwise very discreet kind of outlets and outfits. Okay, the Bank of England has been doing all kinds of things at the behest of the government, despite the fact that the Bank of England was set free from the shackles of central government control by Gordon Brown, but that has made no difference really. But in the last 10 days, the UK Bank of England has really indeed taken, or has had to take, unprecedented emergency action in order to keep afloat what is called the UK economy. And there would have been a huge run on the reserves called the pension funds. Various people who work in various positions and various organizations and various capacities obviously have their hard earnings kind of set aside for their retirement, which is a very precious commodity, precious asset for themselves, for their future. Now, that was the main last resort. That huge sums of money called the pension funds, various government departments and companies maintain the pension funds. Those funds came under almost annihilation, because in the capitalist system, so-called, the real professionalism is in the craft with which they steal money, big time. The fraudsters operate from the city of London under the guises of exchanges, this, that, and the other, and the hedge funders. All these crooks and big criminals, operatives, were almost ready to pounce on the pension funds. And the Bank of England had to take the central strategic steps to avert the disaster of the pension funds being looted. This never came to this, not in the living memory as far as can be recalled. And I have been and am essentially an investigative journalist of no particular ideological persuasion, except that my adherence, my loyalty has been and will remain absolutely to the search for the truth and the upholding of the truth, regardless of who the truth exposes. And I have observed the people from both as a kind of inside journalist within the kind of vicinity or the neighborhood of Fleet Street, and also, of course, mainly from outside. And I have absolutely no evidence to support any of the so-called financial journalists who I can command as independent, objective, let alone informed. The British press may be held outside because of the legacies and remnants of the imperial grand kind of levels and platforming. And the British press is a disgraceful collection of liars and lies. And the so-called National Union of Journalists, of which I had been a member in the 70s, I mean, this contains journalists who are mostly, when they're together, I mean, they meet in London. In the case of London, the National Union of Journalists that I have observed meet in pubs where they consume alcohol, various degrees and various amounts. I mean, those who do that in order to get their kind of inspirations for the conversations or whatever. So it can be imagined that those conversations are not intelligent, really, let alone ethical, let alone moral. And in the case of Private Eye magazine, which is a fortnightly publication, which describes itself as not being part of the Fleet Street kind of street of shame, which is what it calls Fleet Street. And it has had a column that has the phrase, there are various phrases in Private Eye, and one of the phrases it uses is called lunchtime or booze. Lunchtime or booze, B-O-O-Z-E, booze meaning alcohol and drinks. That is a reference to the gossip and indiscretions witnessed and observed and perpetrated during the most prolonged lunch break that the prominent members of the Street of Shame take or have taken traditionally. Lunchtime or booze. That gives a summary of the image that Private Eye has of Fleet Street. And the ordinary people, most of the people whom I call members of the Little Englanders, kind of little world, where Little Englanders think that the world, the planet Earth, all the huge continents are far smaller than Little England. That is how absurd and twisted and perverted the views of the brainwashed majority of the Little Englanders. And it is the Little Englanders who keep foisting on the ordinary innocent people of the world the thing called the Conservative Party leader. And then in the context of the messed up lack of constitution, that means that no matter how many times they kind of ditch the leader, it becomes still the occupant of the office of Prime Minister, which is what is happening with the Liez Truss. Liez Truss is a woman that I noticed in terms of her public appearance in the public as an adulteress, and that I consider a political sin. I'm not giving a moral opinion, but a political sin, because she was married when she was sleeping with the former MP for the cities of Westminster and London, Mark Field. She was doing it brazenly in the knowledge of her husband. Now, as I said yesterday, in the last or latest relevant edition of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, that husband himself is gormless, lacking in self-respect, to the point that he has been appearing before cameras along with Liez Truss and grinning, shamelessly grinning, as if he has done something to be proud of. Well, being married to this adulteress is not something that he should be grinning about. But he is. He has been. That is the point I make, and that is the point I make because of the evidence, not because I knew him or knew about him until he surfaced in the most recent kind of weeks. Now, Liez Truss, when she was kind of produced to the public by the liar David Cameron, her profiles suggested to me that she was a person of law, morality, and ethics. Now, I had no direct observational evidence to form that opinion. I formed that opinion based on the collection. The majority of the kind of profiles and promoted pieces about her constituted a collected or collective image of her, which was very poor, very bad. Now, during the so-called hustings that she agreed to take part in, she didn't agree to take part in every one of the hustings that were organized, but she did appear in some against Rishi Sunak. What she came across as was intentional brazenness and bravado and boasting. These are the traits, bad traits, of course. These are the traits that are most immediately found in the words and the styles of some of the complete liars engaged as so-called journalists in the scum that is Rupert Murdoch's son and the Daily Mail. And one of the worst offenders is, of course, Quentin Letts, shameless and brazen to the point of complete, personification of poison. These people have no respect for the public and they have no respect for the truth and the morality. Now, all of these have come together and exploded in a matter of 24 hours against Liez Truss, who almost nearly sank the British economy and created monumental, not monumental, even worse, chaos in the streets of Britain that have been averted only by the very last minute intervention of the Bank of England. But that cannot be a permanent way to avert disasters. Because what Liez Truss is saying or threatening to do is that she's not going to change her ways. Now, as I said before, Kwarteng and her are now described as having been born the same year and having been very close friends for a long time. That is news to me because I was only aware of her relationship, perverted relationship with Mark Field. I wouldn't put it past her not to have had a kind of deeper relationship with Kwarteng, because Kwarteng has had multiple other relationships other than the wife that he is married to now. I say this because of the unfitness for public office on the part of these people, each one of them, because of this kind of behavior. Because this shows dishonesty and lack of shame. Now, after he left office, that is office of Prime Minister so-called, Johnson has been featured in a little report published too late, I would say, about his relationship with Jennifer Arcuri. Now, what I noticed in the report, the version of the report that the Guardian has published is that the Fleet Street kind of paint this woman, Jennifer Arcuri, as the main offender, wrongdoer. That cannot be the case. Not because I know Jennifer Arcuri any more than I know any of the other women that he has had relationships with. But Johnson has been a serial sexual pervert in that he engages and he has engaged in sexual perversion or perverted sexual relationships in the most shameless way. For example, the Arcuri revelations included the report that he took her to his then married home, married while he was married to Marina Wheeler. Marina Wheeler is the elder, I think, is the daughter of Charles Wheeler, the BBC foreign correspondent, the former foreign correspondent. Marina Wheeler's bed is where Arcuri was taken by Johnson, and he did the whatever. And apparently, Arcuri later recalled to her horror that it was literally minutes before Marina Wheeler returned home that Arcuri had left the place after being, I would say, exploited and sexually abused by Johnson, because Johnson is not a moral, ethical person at all. It is brazen gratification, absolute brazen kind of gratification of the worst kind. And Arcuri recalls in one of her disclosures that during their relationship, the years of their relationship, Johnson could not take his hands off her, which is absolutely believable. Now, so many women have come forward with all kinds of tales and recollections about Johnson. But we didn't have to have any of those women give their evidence, because in other respects or in other parts of his life, Johnson has lied. He was sacked by Michael Howard, who was the Conservative Party leader. He was not prime minister, but party leader, for lying. And the Times, I think, sacked him for lying, inventing a story, and so on. And his own biological father, Stanley Johnson, and his biological sister, Rachel Johnson, both of them suddenly surfaced on the public kind of front when he became mayor in 2008. They had been publicly known perhaps by some people, but the extent to which they hit the public, it was like, or the speed was and can be only described as viral. And what those two contributed to the kind of consolidation of the degenerate personality of Boris Johnson and the family, it appears, was that every time he said something corrupt and offensive and stupid and grotesque and racist and cruel and anti-Muslim, as he did in the case of the statement that he made against Muslim women wearing burqas. He said that Muslim women wearing burqas look like bank robbers. What kind of analogy is that? So when Rachel Johnson and Stanley Johnson joined the propaganda defending Boris Johnson, what did they say? They didn't say they were sorry. or anything like that. They said identical phrases. Both Stanley Johnson and Rachel Johnson said that in denouncing the Muslim women wearing burqas, Boris Johnson had not, and that is the coming is the coming phrase, is the telling phrase, that he had not gone far enough. That is how bad Boris Johnson's background is and has been. Now, so when Rupa Haque, the daughter of a Hindu mother and a Bengali Muslim father from Bangladesh, who is an MP, Labour Party, he used to be a Labour Party MP until last week, when she commented on Kwarteng and said that when he appeared on the BBC Today program or Radio 4, what she was saying was that his accent didn't come across as the accent of a black man, that he came across, or he was, because of the artificiality of his accent and his utterances, he was a superficially black man. When she said that, I mean, she was obviously sacked by Starmer, who wants to be known at this stage as being the next Boris Johnson and stamp on the slightest kind of errors made by particularly a Muslim politician or person. So Rupa Haque herself does not make any claim about being a Muslim as much as she does other things. But she is seen as a Muslim. See the difference? And so therefore she was immediately stamped on by Starmer. I don't think that Starmer would have done anything like that if Rupa Haque had not been a Muslim and if she were a white woman. That is the lesson there from that episode. And Rupa Haque also herself, as I said before, had been an opportunistic, self-serving person with little knowledge. See, the problem with these people doing the PhDs is that when they can claim factually that they've done a PhD, they actually believe that having that PhD, amounts to them being intellectually fit and mature and comprehensive and all the rest of it. That it doesn't. By definition, most PhDs are cons. Most of the PhD so-called degrees are given as routines, and they are increasingly devoid of substance. And there is hardly any engagement with morality, ethics, whatever. I mean, how many PhDs would it take to produce the equivalent of a one page of what Aristotle or Socrates or Plato or whoever, one of those philosophers wrote, or any of the poets? There is no amount, there is no number of PhDs that can be got together to produce the amount, the depth, and the weight and the impact of any of those philosophers. So Rupa Haque found out only this week, I think, in public that is, that her having a PhD from the University of East London or her having gone to one of the Oxbridge colleges is meaningless. Because if she had no sense, political sense, ethical sense, and the wider sense to contextually address the whole of the UK, then no matter what PhDs or what degrees she had, she would not count as being worth listening to or worth recognizing. Rupa Haque has, of course, cultural problems with her own backgrounds. She has not come across anywhere as being culturally at ease with the Bangladeshi community. But she has been a parasite, politically, professionally, careeristic parasite, abusing and selling the name of the Bangladeshis. Same is the case with so many others. As for her younger sister, Connie Haque, as I have said before, the available evidence of Connie Haque's behavior is that she's a shameless pusher whose pushing has included pushing into a whiteness that she can never be a part of, and pushing away the Bangladeshi or Bengali identity that she is part of and she is the product of. She is unlike Rupa and Connie Haque, whose pigmentational appearance is different from the pigmentational appearance of Nadia Hussain, the baker, who is astonishingly, indescribably shameless. Now, these are the people that the racist establishment normally adopts and holds in front of the world and the public as representing our communities. That shows the racism, the deep racism of the establishment platforms and the establishment decision makers. When Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's daughter, Benazir Bhutto, was inserted as the president of the Oxford Union in the 1970s, I was editing one of the less popular in consumer terms, in sale terms, because it was not a commercial publication. It was a political publication through and through, and I was editing it in 76. And I asked my assistant to ring up the Oxford Union and see if she can get answers to some questions that I had prepared for Benazir Bhutto. Of course, despite more than one attempt, Benazir Bhutto continued to evade the contacts. But other reports from the time and then later showed that she was playing. She was a slapper. She was slipping around with so many partners and she was showing off. Now, I knew her father. Okay, I met him only once. But I think that one meeting was enough. Because that was a meeting where I floored him in a verbal, intellectual kind of contest, unplanned by me, and I think unexpected by him. More than 10 years previously, at the Institute of Engineers in Dhaka, in then East Pakistan. I had floored Zulfikar Bhutto simply on the basis of the contents of his utterances. And my questions were, each one of the 9 questions, equally, factually transparent and deserving of transparent and truthful answer. Zulfikar Bhutto wasn't capable of providing that. So at the end of the 9th question, and just before I could put the 10th question to him, Bhutto began sweating, literally sweating, and his face became twisted. And he looked, I'm not saying he was because I was not close enough. He was on a stage and I was on the lower level of the hall. It looked like either he was sweating or he was crying out of frustration. Whatever it was, Bhutto was done for. And he took a right turn and marched out of the Institute of Engineers. Now that march was probably the only march in his entire career, political career, that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was forced to make voluntarily by his opponent. I was not his opponent. I was his questioner, but he must have thought that I was his opponent. I had no agenda against him, but I had a bigger agenda for the whole of the country, Pakistan. And I wanted him to come across as fit to lead the country if he had the ambition to lead the country. I have discussed this many times in the past, and I shall discuss this in future. Essentially, what I'm saying is that I'm used to confronting individuals in public positions or in the public or in public domain, and direct evidence shows that evidence is the test to determine whether somebody is fit or not, both morally, intellectually, and in terms of policy, in terms of strategy for the whole society concerned. When she became Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto was hailed in the wrong words and wrong ways. She wasn't critically analyzed, let alone held to account, based on the policies, based on the state of economy, the state of, if you like, poverty that so many millions of Pakistanis were languishing in. And she most certainly was not quizzed about East Pakistan, which separated into Bangladesh, and the separation was caused in a significant way by her father, Zulfikar Bhutto. Now, in today's Pakistan, Imran Khan is playing the opposition game or opposition role, and the country, including Sindh, which is where the Bhuttos are from and which is where they are holding the power regionally. Sindh has been affected badly by monsoon floods. Now, in one of his references to East Pakistan, Imran Khan appeared to recall that some of the people in West Pakistan, in power in West Pakistan, were fed up with dealing with the demands of cyclone affected East Pakistan. Now, I have said that Imran Khan is absolutely wrong to say that, because as a member of the Lahore Bar Association said, the real Pakistan was East Pakistan. The real Pakistan was never what is now Pakistan. And this includes the fact that Imran Khan keeps saying that Muhammad Iqbal and Muhammad Ali Jinnah created this Pakistan. They didn't. The actual movement for Pakistan came from East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. And all the arguments, all the evidence, all the materials that were used for Pakistan, that became a country in its own name in August 1947, were contributed, generated, created by people like Sher Bangla Fazlul, by other leaders from East Pakistan. And what happened in the series of events, culminating in the events of 1905, defined the future of the subcontinent. And I'm talking about now, and I'm talking about the contextual evaluation of the subcontinent of the last 75 years. That evaluation has been overdue. And although Imran Khan has been giving speeches and has been giving speeches that have been popular with the majority of the participants, attendees, in the context of today's Pakistan, Imran Khan will not solve the problem even of today's Pakistan if he remains reluctant to acknowledge the truth of the real Pakistan. Imran Khan is not in a position to make patronizing references to Bangladesh. He is not in a position to make any patronizing references to East Pakistan. And he has now made things worse by making his own patronizing comments about Bangladesh and East Pakistan. The sheer moral courage of the likes of Sher Bangla Fazlul Haq, the sheer intellectual strength of the likes of Sher Bangla Fazlul Haq, and the sheer moral, ethical, mobilizing personality and power of Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. These are legacies that cannot be matched by any number of references to Muhammad Iqbal or Muhammad Ali Jinnah. These are different types of contributions. And Imran Khan will be missing the main evidence. And if he misses the main evidence, his so-called revolution will collapse, crumble. I mean, when people are riding on the waves, just like Liez Truss was riding in the days before the Conservatives in the UK announced her the leader of the Conservative Party. The people have the tendency to make grotesquely overhyped self-promotion. Now, Imran Khan's language, I've studied the language, And the language is very egotistic. He refers to most things about his leader, Muhammad Iqbal, his leader, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. I hope he doesn't call the Prophet of Islam his Prophet only. But he has to learn to curtail his egotistic references and curtail them forever, not to monopolize the identity of the collective identity of the people of Pakistan, what is now Pakistan, as if they belong to his domain. They don't. The formal apology that he submitted to the judge in Islamabad High Court, Zeba Chowdhury, today, that is Saturday, the 1st of October 2022, shows that Imran Khan can apologize when he thinks that his apology will form part of the evidence that he is humble and is prepared to bow to the moral formalities, etc., etc. Why can't he apologize to the people of East Pakistan, Bangladesh? The people of East Pakistan were targeted for the civilians, I mean. The civilians, innocent civilians, were targeted for mass rapes, mass murders during 1971. And the commander of the Pakistan military in that program was his family relation, Lieutenant General Niazi. If you look at the entry on Imran Khan on Wikipedia, you will find Niazi as his last name at the on the entry there. So Imran Khan cannot behave like the Bhuttos and pretend that East Pakistan didn't happen or Bangladesh didn't happen. Far from being mere accidental occurrences, East Pakistan and Bangladesh, in context, own the movement for Pakistan and own what is now Pakistan politically. That is what I'm saying. It is not and never has been Imran Khan's paternal property to refer to East Pakistan in the offensive, grotesquely infantile, patronizing way that he has done so far. The battle of the subcontinent, the grand battle of the subcontinent, is about what the Muslims who arrived in the subcontinent did and how their legacies have been distorted and how hundreds of millions of Muslims have been reduced to institutionally and traditionally second-class status right across the subcontinent. Imran Khan cannot talk about Kashmir in isolation. He has to talk about the whole of the subcontinent. What is happening to the Muslims in the India of today? All of that. Not just Imran Khan, whoever claims to be the future leader of what is now Pakistan has got the duty to explain what happens to the rest of the subcontinent, not just East Pakistan and West Pakistan, what happened to the rest of the subcontinent? As I said, the Bengali-born woman, Narojini Chattopadhyay, the Hindu Bengali Brahmin woman that was born in West Bengal and who became a Naidu by marriage to a non-Bengali, was one of the most, or the bravest of persons in the subcontinent, man, women, whatever. And she was kind and informed and intelligent when she wrote the tribute to Muhammad Ali Jinnah in 1917, just over 100 years ago. Now, the words she wrote, the phrases she uses, came from a very pure sense of patriotism for the whole of the subcontinent. And when Jinnah himself paid tribute to Gokhale, and to a lesser extent to M.K. Gandhi, he did that as well generously. Now, there is no one active in the subcontinent today from political kind of platforms that can come anywhere near any of those people. I'm saying to Imran Khan that no matter how popular he has been in the rallies and jalsas, he doesn't match any of those people. And of course, he does not, he never mentions the poet Nazrul, he never mentions the poet Tagore, and he never mentions the leader Subhash Bose. He cannot be telling us that he knows the history. He doesn't. He has to acknowledge the contributions of these people. These are the real leaders. He can't say, when I give the order, you come out and fight. He is not in a position to give the orders. He has to say that when he gives the contribution that he can make, or he is fortunate to make, then he hopes they will respond. He cannot tell them in a semi-dictatorial way that they will come. Naujwans, come when I call. He has to address the hundreds of millions of people in India and the hundreds of millions of people in Bangladesh, as well as in Pakistan, what is now Pakistan. And he has to stop capitalizing on the bank of celebrity when he was a cricketer. Okay, it worked when he was a cricketer, but that's not the source of solutions to the problems that await urgent attention. I shall talk more extensively about the money that he has been getting from donations from Canada, from America, from the UK. Pakistan is abroad another time, because of course he has been getting huge sums of money by way of these donations in the telethons that he has done so far. But I am not going to do any of that out of any intention on my part to deny due recognition to Imran Khan for the role that he has played in opening up the debate for the future of the country, future of the subcontinent. Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. That is a too dangerously ambitious slogan. Can he deliver it? It's not a joke to recite the kalima. as a political manifesto. He must know this is very dangerous. If he slips and if he is found to have deluded himself and thought that, well, he would mesmerize the masses who are otherwise desperately hungry for genuine moral leadership, and then he can do the trick and he can then forget all about it. That will not do. And Imran Khan must know that Pakistan ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah is very, very serious statement, slogan, and claim to make. Compared to what has been happening in the Pakistan of today, the Bangladesh of today is a political land that is absolutely going through darkness of its own making. When I say Sikh Hasina, not Sheikh Hasina, I say that intentionally because of Sikh Hasina thoroughly abusing, along with her sister Rehana, the name of their father. While Sheikh Mujib was alive and it was still East Pakistan in the 1960s, Hasina's two brothers, Jamal and Kamal, were notoriously featuring in the gossip that we could not avoid hearing. Although it was the time when the Pakistan military was the main force, 1960s, because of Ayub Khan's martial law regime. On the kind of subsidiary level, the state, the family state that the children of Sheikh Mujib created was a state where anyone else who dared to challenge their authority faced real annihilation. One man who said he was rescued by the CIA, and the man is in the UK, settled here, and has got children, he got married. The man said that a last minute intervention by the CIA saved him from being murdered by Sheikh Mujib's children. So he left the country not long before Sheikh Mujib was himself murdered. So when Lawrence Lifshulz and other criminals pontificate and say that they know about Bangladesh and they know that the CIA was behind Sheikh Mujib's murder, they should be telling the truth, because this man who was saved by the CIA was very much a part of the ideological movement that they were building around the personality of Sheikh Mujib. But Sheikh Mujib's those two sons, not Russell, who too young, but Jamal and Kamal, those two behaved very much like the younger son of Indira Gandhi later. I mean, Indira Gandhi's younger son controlled her physically. That has been reported and written about and spoken about. And he is the one that most opinion in India holds responsible for the desperate, dire state into which Indira Gandhi degenerated and into which her political kind of identity fragmented and led to her personal assassination. The Sheikh Hasina has behaved in a way that has denied all of that. In fact, she has been defiant about the cult. She has been making political capital out of the fact that she is the daughter of Sheikh Mujib. Now, in the country, there is no opposition. In the country, there is no democracy, and there is no justice, there is no fairness for most people, there is no freedom for most people. And the fact that the Rohingyas were attacked by the Burmese was misused by Hasina, because most of the foreign international donations was processed through Sheikh Hasina's regime. There is no account published about what happened to most of the money. But it is absolutely certain that the majority of the money that reached Sheikh Hasina's government under the heading of helping the Rohingyas has not been accounted for. And it is the Rohingyas that saved Sheikh Hasina from serious serial crisis, because the appearance of a nearly million strong people in Cox's Bazar as being, quote, helped by Bangladesh is an image that Hasina could never cultivate based on her other activities. Because everyone knows in Bangladesh that it is dominated by government by thugs and thuggery and gangs and gangsters. One member of the supporters club of Sheikh Hasina in London told me, speaking in Silot, he said, Bhai Sahab, আপনি নিয়ম কানুন কিতা মাতইন? বাংলাদেশ হইল গুন্ডার দেশ। আপনি কিতা মাতন কইন কিতা নিয়ম আর কানুন? গুন্ডার দেশ। যেগুর গুন্ডা আছে ওগুর কাছে পাওয়ার আছে। Now that's not a rare opinion. That is the main opinion. So Sheikh Hasina has been in power and control of the cabal, with the cabal, for too long. Now, before that, there were two terms that Khaleda was in power, and then there was Irshad. And before Irshad, it was, of course, Ziaur Rahman. Now, through all these years, people have witnessed the rivalries and the kind of hatred by these leaders against their opponents. What has been missing? What Imran Khan is saying that Pakistan ka matlab kya. Now, what has been missing is the purpose of Bangladesh. Who was Bangladesh meant for? Was it meant for ordinary people of Bangladesh? Or was it meant for the families? I mean, the longest in control has been the Sheikh Hasina family. Was that the purpose for creating Bangladesh? So Sheikh Hasina has to answer the questions. I mean, in one statement that has been accessible, since she made it in 2016 about the surviving son of Ziaur Rahman, Tariq Rahman, is that she calls him, Sheikh Hasina calls him Kulangar. Now, Kulangar is a Bengali word that amounts to meaning that he's a real bastard. He's a real bad one. Now, I don't know this Tariq Rahman. He may or may not be a real bastard. I don't know him. But for him to be forced to stay in the UK, abroad, and not dare return to the country, Bangladesh, that shows that Sheikh Hasina is a member of the same group, the Kulangar, because he is the son of Ziaur Rahman, and she is the daughter of Sheikh Mujib. As the son of Ziaur Rahman, if nothing else, Tariq Rahman is entitled to the same kind of claims about his father's role for Bangladesh as Sheikh Hasina is or has been making about her own father. Unlike Sheikh Mujib was in protective custody by the Pakistan Army during 1971, Ziaur Rahman was in the fields fighting. So Ziaur Rahman's son, Tariq Rahman, no matter how bad he is personally, is entitled to the same qualified references and privileges because of his own father's contributions that Sheikh Hasina has taken for granted and distorted and has become, practically, she has become beyond question. Now, she has personally no right to claim that. Even Sheikh Mujib, when he was alive, he never personally would have wanted to become a dictator. But the plotters who wanted to destroy democracy, they created Bakshal and made him come across as a threat to democracy. And when they created Bakshal, they murdered Bangladesh independence. These are issues that the so-called radical student leaders of the 1960s, including ASM Abdurrab and others, they are not really raising these questions. They're too heavily engaged in selfish agendas. There is no sign in any of their behavior that they understand the shattering of the dream that they have been selling. Well, the dream became only a commodity on sale after the 16th of December 1971. Because before the 16th of December 1971, the physical environment in the country known as East Pakistan was not suitable, not conducive to a democratic, open discussion. That only began as a possibility after the 16th of December 1971, but it was stifled. It was stifled to the extent that forced the Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani to rush and publish this Haque Kotha, The Truth, that was a small magazine in Bengali. There was no sign of discourse for freedom, discourse on freedom. Those who support the propaganda line that anyone who criticizes Sheikh Hasina is criticizing Bangladesh and its independence are, of course, criminals. Because during the 1960s, which is when it all happened, autonomy, remember that word? That was what the main demand was. Autonomy, the phrase was provincial autonomy, East Pakistan. Even that was being denied by the controlling military clique, dominated by Ayub Khan, of course, and advised by the criminal Altaf Gohar. I mean, Gohar was a brazen liar. I have already recalled my 2 encounters with the liar in London. He was shouting and screaming at me at the Institute of Contemporary Arts, where he was invited as a speaker. And I raised a question. And he denied having the conversation previously with me at another conference. So Altaf Gohar was a liar, but he was the main liar advising Ayub Khan. How many liars are to be found on the list of those who have conspired and advised Sheikh Hasina? There are too many. But the moral background to the silence of the opposition is the fact that among the so-called political parties, there is no moral, if you like, assertiveness for a fair, free, independent country. It's like all these parties have resigned themselves to the fact that Bangladesh really doesn't exist. That, as Bibi Chaudhry, now deceased, told me in the Abba Feldi Street in Poplar while sitting in his car in the middle 1990s, that Bangladesh only came to being because of India. So that is the actual vacuum that dominates Bangladesh politically. And that is not good. Because that vacuum is almost the point before the disintegration. What would happen if Bangladesh disappears, as Bibi Chaudhry claimed it would, because if India decides, it would become another Kashmir. And mass murders by the Hindutva regimes would happen. And there wouldn't be any defense against that. Because internationally, there is no forum internationally for protecting Muslims under attacks. Muslims in China, the Uyghurs, Muslims in Burma, the Rohingyas, Muslims in India, across India, and especially in Kashmir. And essentially, the international image of the Muslims as people, not as theological kind of firebrands, but as ordinary people believing in a faith. The international standing of Muslims is very poor. And that poverty of moral stature, standing, goes back to events like the 1971 behavior of the Pakistan military against innocent East Pakistanis, men, women, and children. Now, there is a huge opportunity for Imran Khan to repair that or start to repair that. And Imran Khan should actually extend his efforts and strengthen it by including the plight of the people of Kashmir and the plight of the Muslims across India, and making the moral platform bigger than anything the Hindutva promoters can make. How long have we been on this broadcast? It's 1 hour, 19 minutes. So we shall conclude this one at this time, but we shall obviously conclude other and update on other issues and topics and on these ones that we have discussed. I'm doing this because of the anyone who would want to view these broadcasts would need to have manageable volume, not too long single volume. So that's what I'm doing. So this is being concluded at 2024 hours GMT equivalent to 21:24 British Standard Time. And I say, reciting from the Quran, referring to the Quran, truth shall prevail and batil will disappear.